Hello, welcome to another Jigsaw 3D video demo. We've just made a quick little tutorial on how to set up Cinema 4D with an external render manager such as Qube or Deadline. That's something you might go for if you're looking for more functionality than the built-in net renderer. So, I've just got a simple scene set up here in Cinema 4D. It's just a little animation that we can render out later. And I've also got a mini render farm set up. I'm using virtual machines, and I wouldn't recommend that in production, but for the purposes of this demo it's really useful because it means I can keep everything on this single PC and you can see what's going on. So first of all, I've got my render supervisor machine. This is what will pick your render up from Cinema 4D and dish them out to the render nodes. I'm running Qube, but this process will be very similar on other third-party render managers such as Deadline or Royal Render. But the important thing for Cinema 4D is that I'm running a Cinema 4D license server. This has the Cinema 4D command line renderer installed on it, and this command line renderer gives you enough licenses for up to 100 render nodes. The thing is, it must be installed on a network license server, so you can't just install it locally on your render nodes. Now if I minimise that supervisor for now, and here I've got my worker node, and that's what will be doing the heavy lifting. So in reality, you'll want this to be a very beefy machine in your data center. On here, I've got the Qube worker service, and that allows Qube to control it. And I've got the full version of Cinema 4D installed, and that's pointed towards my license server. I'll minimize that now too, and we'll pretend those two machines are off in our data center, so we don't need to worry about those at all. We'll just return to our scene in Cinema 4D, and it's just a little simple animation now. The important thing for a render farm is that the scene is saved to some network storage. That's got to be visible to both your workstation and your render nodes. I'm going to do that now. I've got some network storage set up, my render share, and I'm just going to save over this file that I've already got. We'll take a quick look at the render settings too, and the same applies to any output frames. Any output frames that you save, they need to be saved to your network storage. Or you could end up with a situation where your render nodes are saving them locally to their hard drives, and you really don't want that. So I've dropped all my settings down here, so I've got a nice quick render. You wouldn't normally use these settings in production, but I've gone for low settings for this demo, so I can show you nice and quickly. So just to make sure it's saving to our network storage, and I'm just going to call this test. I'll make sure to save so my render nodes can pick up any changes made to the scene. And now it's time to submit to Qube. I've got Qube's built-in submission script for Cinema 4D installed. Again, Deadline, Royal Render and other third-party renderers will have similar scripts for you to use. They might look a bit different, but essentially they achieve the same functionality. So we're going to submit, and I'm submitting that to a Windows worker. And that's picked up our frame range and also picked up our scene file and output files. We've got the 64-bit of Cinema 4D specified, which is what we want. And now I'll ask Qube to render in chunks of 10 frames at a time. I find that that's a bit faster for Cinema 4D, but it does vary. So we'll submit that, and we've got job 258. Now if we open up Qube and refresh the view, you can see we've got job 258 running, and it's already started to render those frames in chunks of 10. There we go. Now if we have a look at our worker node again, then bring up the task manager, you can see that Qube has launched Cinema 4D, and that's what's doing our rendering for us. We should have had some frames output by now. So if I open Windows Explorer and have a look on my render share, we can see that we've got about 20 frames rendered out already, and there's our animation. And that's really it for this demo. I just wanted to run through the differences of submitting to a third-party renderer like Qube as opposed to using NetRender. Obviously there are many more considerations that you need to make when designing and building a render farm, and there's too many of those to go into now. But if you do have any questions about render farms, please do get in contact with me or one of my colleagues, and we'll be very happy to help you to design and implement a render farm to suit your needs.